Hey, Inspired Moneymaker. Have you ever thought about taking a sabbatical or a mini retirement? Today's guest is traveling the world for 6 months, so we're going to learn all about planning and budgeting for it. Episode 227 features Nik Kennett, marketer and travel hacker.
Like I mentioned, Allie and I, we don't have kids yet. We want children. This is a way to close the chapter temporarily of just us, before we move into that new season of life. Of course, there's other benefits of travel. It accelerates your mind. I think just like my mission trip I took when I was 15, and I've been to so many other countries since then. The world is much bigger than your home country.
I'm Andy Wong, host of the Inspired Money podcast and financial advisor at Runnymede Capital Management. Today's guest is Nik Kennett. He and his wife Allie are a young 30-something couple who live in Arkansas. While on their financial independence journey, they both quit their jobs to take a mini retirement to travel the world. Since this episode is about traveling, I'm going to include a travel affiliate link or two in the comments. Click on them to support Inspired Money. Thank you for watching and supporting this channel. You'll pay the same fee whether or not you click through. You're about to see that this is a story about setting a plan and taking action. In this episode, you'll learn budgeting and planning for a 6-month sabbatical, lifestyle design, and living a life of intention. And make sure you watch to the end for travel hacking tips, because Nik and Allie racked up over 1.7 million miles in less than a year. Now let's get inspired with Nik Kennett. Nik, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Andy. Really excited to be here.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
Well, I think it was saving every coin I could scrap together in my piggy bank to buy a video game of some kind. Probably age like 8. And I remember wanting to buy a Game Boy game and asking my folks if all the change I had in this jar was enough, and seeing if I could do some extra chores to cover it. That's my earliest memory, and I would say that is about all I can remember.
Well, it's good to have a goal and to set it.
Absolutely.
And then achieve it. So
absolutely.
I think that's puts you on the right track. So it's good to have that framework, because you can carry that into adulthood. So where are you right now?
So I and my wife, Allie, are both currently in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Nice. And is it warm? What's the temperature?
Oh, it's perfect. We just came from Bangkok, and it was very hot. I mean, it was like 90s Fahrenheit for all you Fahrenheit people. I couldn't tell you what that is in Celsius. But we got to Chiang Mai yesterday, and I believe this morning when I left for my little jog around Chiang Mai, it was like 65 degrees. Just perfect. Sunny. It's absolutely nice.
Well, please, if you're going to adventure and have some street food, please have some pad thai or something for me. Now, I want to get into your story, because you and your wife, Allie, are both successful marketers. Talk about the process and conversations that you guys had. This probably goes back 6+ months ago, that got you to quit your jobs, leave your house behind, and commit to traveling for a year.
Yeah. So you mentioned probably 6 months ago. It's actually more like maybe 18 months ago. These conversations began, I would say, early in the pandemic, at least in their current iteration. So I'll back up a little bit. I fell in love with travel at a young age, and I had the chance to go on a mission trip to Peru when I was about 15. And I think that's really where I caught the bug. Just that first experience of seeing outside my bubble, and then Later on, got to do some, travel, study abroad type stuff with school. And I met my wife, who at the time had never even been on an airplane in her life. And after we got married, we started traveling internationally a little bit together, and travel really sort of became a shared purpose in our marriage. And I know I'm on a big trip right now, but this whole story isn't just about travel. Like you mentioned, we both had good jobs. We were, climbing a ladder, so to speak. We had a solid life together, and I just always had this sort of deep yearning to do something big. I like setting big goals, and I was on sort of a personal finance journey early in our marriage. When we got married, we had a lot of debt, and I kind of put on the CFO hat for our marriage and dug into trying to figure out how to eliminate that debt. And so I had to start learning about personal finance. And I got really into the financial independence movement. And so, fast forward a little bit, we become aware of financial independence, FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And on that journey, as we're aggressively working towards FI, I came across and became fascinated with this idea of a mini retirement, or as some would call it more traditionally, a sabbatical.
How old are you guys right now?
So I am 31 years old, and my wife is 28.
And when you discovered, or when you started this journey of FI, financial independence, did you take drastic measures to reduce your expenses so you could pay down your debt? What did that look like?
Yeah. I think after finishing graduate school and getting adult jobs, lifestyle creep was beginning. It was nice to finally have an income. And I think for a while it was, spending on nice dinners and things like that. And we were still investing a little bit through work, but nothing seriously. Just with our 401ks, we were taking advantage of what match was available to us, but really not doing a whole lot of saving, not doing a ton of investing. But yeah, I think once discovering this and when things really started to finally click for me, it was saving as much as we possibly could. And we ended up, prior to this experience, we were saving around 56% of our take home. And so, yeah, I would say it was drastic reduction in expenses, and then just trying to be intentional to save everything that we possibly could.
When you were doing that, did it feel like a sacrifice?
At times, but I almost want to say that for us, and this could sound terrible, don't take it the wrong way if you're listening to this, but hunkering down during COVID-19 kind of had some benefits to us from the ability to save. We couldn't go anywhere there, other than maybe ordering some food to be delivered to our house or whatever. We weren't going out to eat. So there were some sacrifices, of course. We chose a lot of nights to, just cook very, very simple. We ate our fair share of rice and beans type meals. We were never hurting in any serious kind of way. I mean, we're still very blessed to have great jobs and good incomes. And, so many people in the pandemic lost their income, or their health, their life. And we were very blessed to come out of the pandemic, the early days of the pandemic, unscathed. So no, there weren't any significant personal sacrifices other than, there's no reason we can't continue to drive the vehicles that we've been driving for several years. There's no reason we can't just stay at home this weekend instead of go out and do this kind of thing. But I'll tell you, I think one of the reasons I was so drawn to a mini retirement was that it was kind of breaking up what could sometimes be considered a monotonous grind of trying to get to that fully, financially independent, retired number, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
that was sort of intentional about, why we timed this when we did.
Where does being debt free fit into this timeline?
So we became debt free probably a year before we left on our trip. So it was about 3.5 years into our marriage. And, we began the marriage with a fair amount of debt and worked really hard to pay that down, tried to eliminate lifestyle creep. And then as, we basically used the snowball method. We started with one, paid it off. As soon as that was done, we shifted the additional money we were paying to the first one towards the second one, et cetera, et cetera. And once all that was done, we just directed all of that towards savings and investing. And so we had a good, solid year of being able to just focus on savings and investing.
Once you paid your debt off, do you what happens at that point? At what point do you start thinking about, should we take a sabbatical? When does that start?
That actually started before we were debt free. This was a decision that wasn't only driven by finances. It was driven by a lot of other reasons. We have this, as I mentioned, we're both young. We don't have kids yet. And so I look at our situation as we're very blessed. We had this window of opportunity, I say, and we chose to take advantage of it. And it's not this thing we're doing. It's not a value statement. I'm not trying to say that anybody else needs to go do this, or that if you don't do it, there's something wrong with you. But there's a Thoreau quote. I'm going to pull it up so I don't get it wrong, but he said, "Men spend the best part of their lives earning money in order to enjoy a questionable liberty during the least valuable part of it." That is sort of where we were coming from. It's hey, we're young, we don't have kids yet. This is a shared interest of ours, a shared purpose, I would say, in our marriage. And I think travel expands your mind. It's accelerated personal development in a way. And honestly, just in writing the story of our lives, I just don't want to do life by default. And so it wasn't only a, hey, now we're debt free, let's go do this kind of thing. It was a, how can we make the financial aspect of our lives work so that we could take this mini retirement, so that we could take this gap year, while we can, and while we can enjoy it to the fullest.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people to think about, because it's so easy to just be lost in the grind, and you kind of don't have a vision of, what am I doing this for? What is my goal? What do I want to do with my money? Which,
For sure.
I think that there are a lot of people who don't have their financial house in order, but then those who do, there are a lot of people who are working and they don't even need to be working. They have enough.
Yeah.
But they just it's like they're trying to accumulate more. So I like this idea of trying to figure out what's important to you. What do you want to be doing in your life, and to take action? You mentioned that you were saving, 50%. Did that have to change once you decided that you were going to go on this trip? What changes needed to be made in preparation?
Well, I would say that probably knowing that this trip was on the horizon helped boost our savings rate. I mean, it gave us a why. It gave us a reason. It was more and more motivation to try and put as much energy and as much into our savings as possible to take care of it. Now, some of that, just so we're clear on terminology, some of that is liquid savings that we can access while we're here on the trip. That's not all retirement savings. But no, I would say that the sabbatical and the decision to do this did nothing but boost our savings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you end up saving more, right?
Way more.
Like how much? How much is way more?
Okay, so my plan was to ensure that we have a 6-month emergency fund, which that was something we had already been building up at the time. But then I basically wanted to double that, so that we would have, in other words, a year's worth of expenses taken care of. And then I tried to be a little bit conservative, so I inflated that. So set aside for the trip, we set aside about $30,000. And I think that's more than enough, because when we entered the trip, I have a daily target of we're going to spend less than $100 a day on average. That's total for the two of us: lodging, transportation, meals, everything. And so for a 6-month sabbatical, do the math: 180 days times $100. That's less than $30K. But there's going to be unknown things that happen. There's, we're paying someone to take care of our dogs while we're gone, so there's an expense there. There's a few other things, and then of course you offset that with a lot of travel rewards, points and miles we were able to build up before we took the trip. And it was a lot of work. Like I said, it was about 18 months of planning, trying to figure out how to do this, trying to figure out how to save enough, where to go and where to be, so that everything we had saved would go farther. And that's a great example of, like, we're currently in Thailand. The US dollar goes a little bit farther here. Thai food is my favorite food already. And, so today for lunch, we went and had delicious curry, khao soi, it's called, which is it's a specific northern style curry that you can get here in Chiang Mai. Giving you probably more info about food than you want on this money podcast, but
you can never have too much info on food.
There you go. It's delicious. And my meal cost like $1.50, like for an entree. Whereas at home at my Thai place back in the States, I would have paid, $10, $11 for that. So that was a factor as well. Geographic arbitrage. Where is our dollar going to go farther?
You guys are traveling. I'm sure that you were hoping that it would no longer be a time of COVID, but it seems like we're still, like, it continues. So I'm curious, how much can you plan in advance versus planning on the road?
Yeah, my the way I would have answered this 6 months ago is much different than I would answer it today. Allie and I are both type A, Enneagram 3. Like, I have long prided myself on planning great trips and kind of having a meticulous roadmap for how we're going to do things. Not, detailed down to the minute or anything stressful like that, but just planning. It's something I love to do. It's part of what got us into all of this. But oh my gosh, during the pandemic, we have had to just learn how to be flexible. And I think that's a good learning for us. I think it's a good learning for anybody. It's just to be able to roll with the punches. Now I'll say, with the right research, and we have learned a lot. It's very important to pay attention to what the country you're going to be going to, like what their specific restrictions are. And, so I'll give you an example. Getting here to Thailand was a bit of an ordeal. There's a whole process, and it involved, you have to book your flights, book your hotel, purchase travel insurance, arrange transportation from a specific type of transport company from the airport to your hotel, schedule tests for when you arrive and for a few days within your stay. And you have to lock down all of those things before you can even apply to enter the country. And so there's a lot of administration. There's a lot of paperwork. Thailand also had a list of, here were the countries that you can have spent time in the last 14 days before coming here. And so when we sat down and wrote our why 18 months ago, when we decided we actually want to commit to this, one of the things we wrote was, this would be such a fun problem to solve. And I don't think we had any idea when we wrote that just how big of a puzzle and how big of a problem sometimes it would be. But, now that we've done this a few times, navigated, entering some different countries, it is kind of cool to look back on and think, man, like that was a puzzle, but we figured it out. And so my word to anybody who's trying to travel internationally right now is, it's very possible. Just give yourself enough time to plan, and make sure that when you're doing research on these places you want to go, that you check the date of when the article was written. I would highly recommend
moving target.
It really, really is. And I would definitely recommend travel insurance.
So with both you and Allie being planners, at the outset, what was the goal? How many countries? It sounds like you must have plotted out a pretty good plan, even if it's had to change.
Yeah, we plotted out a lot. Our goal has been 20 countries. Initially our discussions started around 3 months. And I think once we committed to the amount of effort, the amount of work to leave our jobs, to, move out of our house, to all of these ducks we had to get in a row, it grew into 6. And 20 countries was a goal. Some other goals were, we wanted to build over 1.5 million points and miles to fund kind of, our airfare, our lodging. We wanted to rent our house while we were gone, basically to at least cover our mortgage, but hopefully to make a profit. And yeah, our whole process, like I mentioned, we sat down at my desk one morning, and the very first thing we did was we charted our why. Why do we want to do this? And then our what do we want to do, which is some of those goals I was talking through. But immediately after that, we jumped into, we built a Trello board and basically plotted out, a year out, 9 months out, 6 months out, 3 months out, all the tasks and different things that we were going to need to get covered in all of our areas of life in order to make this happen. And I actually have that Trello board available as like a template for anyone else who is thinking about doing this same kind of thing. But, from the high level stuff of beginning to have those potentially difficult conversations with our employers, to applying for our international driver's licenses, to having a going away party before we go, and making sure you download the right stuff for the plane ride over there. So yeah, we got deep into planning, and we really enjoyed it. It became kind of an all-consuming thing, almost to the point where I'm excited to help others do this, and really want to equip other people who may have a similar interest to do the same kind of think for themselves.
That's really cool. Proof of the real planner, the detailed Trello board. And I'm sure if you're sharing that, that is a valuable resource. Were you guys, well, let's take a step back. Talk a little bit more about, like, elaborate on your why. Share that with us.
Yeah. One of our whys, and I've hit on it a couple of times. I shared that Thoreau quote about, hey, how free are we going to be if we don't do this till we're in worse health and worse energy than we are now? Or a big part of it has been, like I mentioned, Allie and I, we don't have kids yet. We want children. And so, part of our why was, this is a way to close the chapter temporarily of just us, before we move into that new season of life. Of course, there's other benefits of travel. It accelerates your mind. I think, just like my mission trip I took when I was 15, and I've been to so many other countries since then. The world is much bigger than your home country, and for as much negativity as is out there, and as much they're different than me, so I'm not sure about that. There's just so much negativity out there, and people everywhere. There are good people everywhere. I'll say it that way. And a lot of people all over the world are the same and have the same motivations. They want to take care of their family. They want to do what they believe is the right thing. And so I think that was part of it, is just the realization that the world is a lot bigger than our home country. Let's get out of our comfort zone. Let's become more cultured, more understanding, because we want to start a family. I want to pass some of those things on to our kids. In our marriage, I thought this would give us some space to connect. And there was a study done by researchers at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, basically about the relationship effects of travel. And some of the things that they hit on were related to the ideas that couples who travel together, their marriages are less likely to end in divorce. Families that travel together, they're creating shared meaning, shared purpose. In a book called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, the author talks about creating love maps with your spouse, having a shared language, and having, they use that metaphor over and over and over, but filling in the details and the landmarks and the color in that shared map that you have with your spouse to understand them. And so that when you hit the tough times, you have something you can go back to. And that was a big part of it, was the relational aspect of it. There's also the Sabbath aspect of it. We as a species are kind of bad at rest. We've gotten bad at rest. And I think as Americans, we're really bad at rest. But it's in our DNA. We need it. And, I use this example. I've used it on a couple of other podcasts. In the Old Testament, the Hebrews were to let the ground rest every 7 years. They were supposed to live on what they had. And it was an exercise in trust and faith just as much as it was in just resting. And so that's part of it, is just resting and just giving space to connect. And I know that sounds so un-Western and so un-American, but on the personal finance side of things, that's the beauty of getting your financial house in order and working to make that a priority. I've had so many conversations with people I know, people who make more money than Allie and I did. And there's that mindset of, oh, I wish I could do that, or that'd be nice. And look, the truth is you could do that. And I think there are plenty of people who made much less than we did that could do this. It's just been a matter of priorities. And I don't want to be callous to the fact that Allie and I are extremely fortunate to be where we are. We were both raised in great families, and we went to school. We got great jobs. I'm thankful for all that we have, but I continue to think about that Thoreau quote, and I continue to think about, as I heard another author say, fate is a terrible writer. We didn't want fate to write our story. We didn't want to do life by default. We wanted to write our own incredible chapter, and that's what it's driven by.
I love that. And I love the perspective gained through travel, because unfortunately today we're not only living in a time where there's conflict between countries and cultures, but there's divisiveness even with our neighbors. So
Sure.
It's nice to have that perspective, just to kind of change our mindset and realize that, we do have more things in common, even across
Absolutely.
cultures and even with our neighbors.
Absolutely.
You mentioned wanting to help people, and I know that you started a business Away Together. Is this a potential career change for you guys?
Yeah, it's something we're considering for sure. And, for Allie, she wants to go back and continue to do something similar to what she was doing. And for me, I'm interested in pursuing this. I think this is such a cool thing that we've done. Obviously we've guested on some podcasts, and I'm so thankful to be here today, getting to share about it. We've started a business, and really kind of two areas that we try to help is I want to help others who are interested in doing this same kind of thing, or maybe have interest in lifestyle design in general, through coaching and sabbatical planning. And then the other area is I plan awesome trips. Don't think travel agent, think more VIP concierge. So whether that's, reviewing your itinerary, whether that's, you've built up a bunch of points and miles through a couple credit cards you have, but you're not really sure the best way to redeem them, I can help that. My favorite thing to do is really to help someone plan a memorable trip for them, maybe their spouse or their loved ones. And really, a lot of people are busy. They would love to do the big, Italy trip, for example, or they'd love to go on a safari, but they don't really know where to start. And that's one way I want to help.
I know who I'm going to contact when I'm ready to go on a safari.
Let's do it.
That's on my wife's list. So give us some travel hacking tips, because I saw that despite your 100-day, like $100 per day budget, I saw that you guys stayed at a 5-star resort in Italy for free.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, most of our points and miles accumulation has not come from some super secret way. It's just been largely through credit card sign-up bonuses. And so, for anyone who may not know, that's simply been through signing up for credit card offers, say from like American Express, for example. And the premise is that they would offer you a bonus for signing up for the card and spending a minimum amount during a certain period of time. And so I have a very large spreadsheet, and Allie and I opened probably 15 cards related to this trip. Very detailed info in the spreadsheet of when we opened them, what the minimum spend is. And basically, we didn't go too fast. We weren't reckless, but the idea was only spend the money we were going to spend anyways, on bills or groceries or things like that, meet the minimum spend of a card, and then move on. And so I can't tell you how many times I have transferred my recurring payment of, say our internet bill from one credit card number to another. But that was, I would say, our main hack in being able to build these. A couple of others. This one is a little bit more intermediate. A lot of these credit card companies and loyalty programs offer shopping portals. And really what that means is you open your browser and before you go shop for something, you go start on their site. Now, sometimes they have their own, how do you say it? Sort of their own actual, marketplace where you are looking for these items. And sometimes you just start on their page and it redirects you elsewhere. So one of my favorite hacks ever, I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve. It's my favorite credit card for travel because the currency that you earn the points in is transferable to I think it's like 11 different airlines, a couple different hotel chains, and it's valued very, very highly. So that card in particular, you get 3 points toward any dollar that you spend on travel. Okay? That's kind of component number one you need to know. British Airways, which is another program I'm a part of, they have a shopping portal for Airbnb. So anytime I go to book us an Airbnb, because there's no Airbnb loyalty program, I go start my Airbnb search on BritishAirways.com. And I can't remember the exact number of points. We can maybe clarify in the show notes if desired. But I start my Airbnb shopping experience on British Airways. I go find the place, and then I book with Chase Ultimate with my Chase Sapphire Reserve card, which earns me 3 points. And so just with a little bit of intentionality, Andy, all this is choosing to begin my browsing experience elsewhere. So maybe a total of 10 seconds. That's like the ultimate double dip because I think it's 6 points on British Airways and then 3 for Chase Ultimate Rewards. So that's like 9 points per dollar spent versus 0 points per dollar spent. So that's a hack. I hope I didn't lose everyone just now. But
so double dipping is good. It's a good thing.
Double dipping is good. The short answer is check out shopping portals because they're highly valuable.
Yeah, we'll look that up and I'll put that in the show notes. When you're creating your spreadsheet and trying to map out which cards you're going to open, are you using resources like the Points Guy? Any resources that you want to share?
Definitely. Yeah, the Points Guy has been huge. They are, one of my favorites. Absolutely. Another I get, and it's the least glamorous. It is not sexy at all, but they are generally the first to the punch for any news. It's simply an RSS feed style email called Doctor of Credit. And it's just a daily kind of newswire I get every morning. Sometimes there's not a lot, but most days there's good info in there. Another, one more good one. The method I mentioned using earlier where Allie and I opened a bunch of different cards, the term for that is called credit card churning. And that rabbit hole goes pretty deep. There is a community on Reddit. It's simply R churning. And there's a bunch of great info there. I can't take credit for some of the gold that's there, but they have a flow chart that they keep pretty up to date for if someone is interested in getting into this travel rewards space, depending on what your motivation is, whether it's travel or cash back is kind of another path. They have a flow chart that sort of tells you what credit cards to apply for in what order, because the order can actually be pretty important depending on how far you want to go.
When you're doing the credit card churning, once you meet the requirement, like you applied to get your points, you spent the necessary amount of money so that you get your points, do you keep that card open, or do you also close cards that you don't need anymore?
So it depends. As a rule, I try to avoid closing credit cards because it can kind of ding your score. I will look at it on a case-by-case basis. It depends, number one, on how large the annual fee is, if there is an annual fee. If there's no annual fee, I will never close it. And maybe it's a card where I don't get a lot of value out of it regularly, or maybe, it doesn't give you all that great of points. I may just make one purchase a year, and there's ways to even kind of set and forget that, so like if you have a card that you need to keep alive, but you don't plan on using, attach your Amazon Prime membership to it, for example, or something like that. Think of something you have to pay for one time and do that so you don't forget about it. The other is really, rather than closing a card, you can downgrade a card. So, for example, I'll use Chase. Chase is one of the best providers in the game, and they have a significant number of cards. I mean, they have probably 20, 30 something different credit cards available. So there's a lot of options. There are plenty of paid options and plenty of free options. So once getting to that kind of annual time frame, if I don't plan on keeping the card because it's not worth the annual spend, let's say, it's very easy to downgrade. You just call Chase customer service and you ask them if you could downgrade to a specific card. And for anyone thinking of doing this, I recommend that you know what card you'd like to downgrade to, or have a couple in mind, because if you ask by name, it's going to make it a lot easier for them on the phone. And I've not been declined for that yet. I'm not saying you can't be, but it's an extremely easy process. It's like a 15-minute phone call in my experience.
The goal there is usually so that you no longer have an annual fee. Yeah.
And like I said, it's on a case-by-case basis. So, hotel cards are a great example of, I've got a Marriott card with a $95 annual fee. But with that card, I get at least one free night at a Marriott every year. In general, that's going to be worth $95. So I'm fine to let that card continue to roll. But there are others, a lot of airline cards would be a good example. The perks that I get on a low-level American Airlines credit card are really not worth $100, in my opinion. Now, some of the higher cards, let's say you fly American all the time, there are cards where your annual fee may be $250, and the perks that come with that are good enough to justify that. So it's kind of case by case, and it's kind of just doing the math. I won't close a card or try to downgrade it just because it has an annual spend. It's really about what's the value you get, and are you maximizing the value you can get? And that's a very individual decision.
Well, it sounds like living a life of intention. With the travel hacking part, you need to be very intentional about your credit card management and spending too.
And organized, for sure.
Spreadsheets help.
Absolutely.
So Nik, since you and Allie have been in the grind and now you have this sabbatical, I like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
Yeah. I'll say, first off, as a person of faith, as a Christian by faith, I define success as knowing God and bringing others to know him too. I would say beyond that, it's doing what you were born to do and doing that really, really well. and doing that in such a way that it benefits more than yourself. And I suppose in the vein of a sabbatical, some of the things we've been thinking about are time, money, and location freedom.
Yeah, what's your vision? I know your sabbatical is still ongoing, so I'm sure that there's time to gain more insights, and that can influence what your future plans are. But, you mentioned that you're thinking about how can you help people? How can you consult people who want to travel, take a sabbatical? Allie has more of an interest to return to her job. But is it in this context of being location independent? And like, if she returns to a marketing position again, is she looking for a position that she can do from anywhere in the world and be moving at the same time?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I'll be honest with you. We have realized through this experience that we don't want to be full-time travelers. Now, I don't want to paint a negative picture because it's been a terrific 3.5 months so far. It's been everything we dreamed of, but we don't want to be on the move full-time. I think being gone this long has made us realize how much we love home. And it's weird to say this. I didn't think I'd be saying this 3.5 months ago, but sometimes it's just nice to know where the good places to eat lunch and dinner are. Sometimes it's nice to know which grocery store has the stuff you need, So we do plan to return to our home in Northwest Arkansas, but our vision is certainly that the work that we can do from anywhere in the world. And that's been part of our plan since we first started planning this 18 months ago.
Yeah, flexibility is good.
And thankfully, I think that the world was moving that direction already, but COVID certainly accelerated it.
Big time.
Yep.
Big time. I forget what the number is, but I was just watching a 60 Minutes report, and I think it was something like 1 in 60 people were working remotely before, and now it's 1 in 7.
Yeah.
Something like,
Wow.
It's a drastic change. Well, thank you for sharing your and Allie's stories and your insights and the travel hacking tips. That's something that I need to do. We need to take advantage. I mean, we have 3 kids. We need the travel points so that when we travel, we can cash in on the points. Tell the Inspired Money listeners and viewers where to follow you, because right now they can truly follow you on your travels.
Yes. So we are literally documenting the journey that we're on. I'm carrying this big camera around everywhere. We have a YouTube channel. You can find us there called Away Together with Nik and Allie. My name's spelled Nik. And you can also find us at awaytogether.com. And I wrote a guide on how to plan your own sabbatical. It's called Guide to Going Away. You can get that at awaytogether.com/inspiredmoney.
Awesome. Thanks, Nik. And I encourage everyone to check out the YouTube channel. I was watching it. You guys do a great job with editing. I like to see the different places. It's entertaining, and it's trials and tribulations. You get to see your mishaps with rental cars.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to rush to the airport in time, hoping that there are no delays. So it's good stuff. Keep up the great work and safe travels.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope we can help people, even if they can just learn from our mistakes.
Thanks, Nik.
Thanks, Andy.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? I loved getting basic travel hacking tips because I could really benefit from free hotel and airline points. Of course, it was great to hear how Nik and Allie are both living with very clear goals before having kids. Make sure to check out their YouTube channel so that you can see all the amazing places that they're visiting. I want you to take time this week to really think about what goals you want to prioritize. Write them down so you can review them and put a plan together for achieving them. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment, let me know by posting a comment below. Thank you for watching to the end. Sign up for our email that goes out every 2 weeks. The Runnymede investment team highlights data, news, and events that we think are worth sharing. subscribe at inspiredmoney.fm/newsletter. It's free and informative. Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.